Anchor is the easiest way to make a podcast. Anchor gives you everything you need in one place for free, which you can use right from your phone or computer. Creation tools allows you to record and edit your broadcast so it sounds great. And they even distribute your broadcast for you so that it can be heard everywhere. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. So make sure you download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
Hello everyone, and here are your news for this week. Join host Andrew FRETT every Friday on our podcast for his show, Let's Fret About Education, where he interviews amazing guests and discusses his own opinions and thoughts about the topics on Future Educators Talk and what's happening around the world. Follow and subscribe to my own podcast, Damian Talks Education, everywhere you stream your podcast at, and make sure you subscribe to the podcast YouTube channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. New episodes of Future Educators Talk drops on Thursdays, so follow and subscribe wherever you listen to your favorite podcast at. Follow Future Educators Talk on social media: Facebook, Future Educators Talk, Instagram at Future Educators Talk, and on Twitter at Future Ed Talk. So follow our podcast. And follow your host of Future Educators Talk on social media. You can follow me, Damian Anderson, on Instagram at @DamianAnderson and on Twitter at _Damian Anderson. You can follow Andrew FRETT on Instagram at @It'sAndrewFRETT and on Twitter at Darren_Fret. And you can follow KJ Johnson II on Instagram at KJJohnsonII and on Twitter at KJJohnson11 or II. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Future Educators Talk, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode of our video version episodes that we upload. Also, you can now listen to past episodes of our show on our YouTube channel and on all the podcast platforms that we are located at. Now sit back and relax because a new episode of Future Educators Talk is starting now.
Welcome to Future Educators Talk with your hosts, Damian Anderson, Andrew FRETT, and KJ Johnson II. Always remember, we are future educators.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Future Educators Talk. As you can see, Andrew and David, they are not here with us, but they will be back soon. So today we have our first guest joining the podcast. He lives in Alabama. He is surrounded by crime and poverty. He knew at a very early age that he wanted to become a teacher. And also, he graduated from undergraduate school to be accepted into Alabama State University to obtain his master's degree in education. So everyone, please welcome on to the podcast, Dr. DeMarcus McMillan. So welcome to the podcast. We're so excited to have you on. So my first question to you is, why don't you tell our listeners about yourself and the projects that you are working on?
I'm sorry, was that for me, Damian?
Yes.
Okay, so my name is DeMarcus McMillan. I am an educator in Washington, D.C., and I'm originally from Mobile, Alabama. I currently serve as an assistant principal. I am a researcher of African American males and life trajectories and how education plays a huge role in life trajectories of black males.
I have a question, Dr. McMillan. What inspired you to take that role and to study those things that you are studying in this project that you're working on?
So two main things for me. Well, first off, I am an African American male, and I've had my own life experiences. And when I became an educator, I saw how African American males were disproportionately suspended and expelled from schools. I saw how we were incarcerated at higher rates than any other group of people. I noticed how we were disenfranchised in almost every area of American life. And so I wanted to study why and how I could prevent these things from happening.
That's what's up. That's big time for real. That especially now more than ever.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And I want to ask you this. What inspired you to teach in the first place? Because you knew at a very early age that you wanted to be an educator. So what inspired you to become an educator in the first place?
As far back as I can remember, I wanted to be a teacher. I'm talking about when I was in kindergarten. I knew that that's what I wanted to do. What is a couple things that confirmed and solidified what I feel is my calling, what I know to be my calling. My mom didn't get her college degree until I was 9 years old. So I basically was a part of her college journey. And one of the biggest reasons why she wanted to get a college degree, not just for the education, but more so to pull our family out of poverty. So I grew up in a single parent home, and that was one of the keys that she used to get her family out of poverty. And so when I witnessed that at an early age, it was something that really, really stuck with me. And then, like I said too, I was a part of her journey getting her college degree. So she was taking me to the library because she didn't have a babysitter to watch me. She was taking me to some of the college classes, and I was sitting in the college classroom. And so I got a chance to witness this firsthand at a very, very early age, and that had a very, very profound impact on me.
That's that's awesome. My like I said, I've been wanting to be an educator for years as well. Both my parents are, and seeing my mom, my dad do it, really inspired me to do it. Especially the journeys and the hurdles they've had to hop over in their journey. That's real. It's real, and really appreciate it. Now, with that being asked, if you could do anything to improve one, I mean, if you could do anything to improve our educational system here, what will it be?
I'm sorry. Repeat that question because I have so many different things. But you said one, right?
Yeah,
You
I
said
mean, it could be. I mean, shoot. I mean, if you got more than one, feel free to share. What would you do
okay.
to improve our educational system?
I'm gonna try my very best to limit my answer because I talk about that a lot. Um. Oh man. I really don't even know where to start because there's so many different things that we can do.
Yeah,
I mean, the first thing is just a basic level is making sure that our schools are actually providing education.
yeah,
We can't
no,
all assume that schools provide education. Um, so it's kind of like when we go to the pharmacist, we expect the pharmacy to provide medication, don't we? Right? When
yeah,
we go to the grocery store, we expect the grocery store to provide food. We can't always assume that with the schools, right? We expect
yeah,
schools to provide education, and so let's define education. Education can mean a number of things, but let's go back to the Latin root of what education means, right?
mhm,
Education means to bring forth. If you look it up, look at the what we call the etymology of education. It means to bring forth, it means to lead, and it means to bring out. We're not necessarily doing that. And there's a difference between teaching and educating. So teaching means to pour in, educating means to pull out. And
Mm-hmm.
what we tend to do is we tend to pour in a lot. We tend to teach a lot, more so because it's political. We need test scores. We need this. We need that. We don't necessarily pull out a lot of gifts and talents that our students already possess. So the first thing I'm going to say is we simply just need to make sure that our schools are actually providing education, true education, and not making schools political. And that's what has oftentimes happened, especially for Black boys and maybe Black girls. For Black boys in particular, we never really know our true gifts and talents because we haven't been properly educated. We've been taught, but we haven't been properly educated. And the difference between, again, the teaching and educating part is education is liberating. It's
Yeah.
liberating. It's not just, okay, I'm pouring in. Because remember, the slaves were taught as well, right? The slaves had knowledge. They were taught, but their teaching was more oppressive than anything else.
Yeah.
For us as Black men, the school system uses us to a certain degree. If we could throw a football, we're good. For those of us who may not know our gifts and talents, because I can't throw a football, never dribble a basketball, that's just not my thing. I'm not an athletic person. So if the schools properly educated all of us, we might have more political leaders. We might have more motivational speakers. What I'm saying is the school system doesn't necessarily tap into the educational side of things. I could go
Yeah.
on. I'm gonna stop there, but I mean, I could. That's a whole book that I could write on that.
But you're exactly right. Um, Schools don't really tap into the sides, of the other side of I really don't know how to put words to it, but the other side of not being an entertainer, so on and so forth. What Black kids know or what is what they're exposed to. They hear the phrase, "Are you tall? Do you hoop?" Granted, I played 5 sports. I mean, I hooped, I played football, ran cross country, track, played tennis. I was athletic, but but after high school, and what I did not know when I got to college was much more being a Black man than just playing sports. But you don't see that. I've gotten away from. I mean, yeah, I still do, go out and hoop sometimes. Yeah, I still do go out and run sometimes. All good stuff. But I don't. It's not what I make my life now, like I did in high school, and that's what the schools aren't teaching. And so, and I love how you brought up the etymological study. I'm a preacher, so I'm big on that word study, all that different stuff. So I love how you brought it back to the roots of education. So I appreciate that. I really do.
And, and if we could talk about that quickly, since you are a preacher, right? There's a spiritual side to this, right? And I'm writing a book on this very matter. That this is all intentional. This is spiritual warfare, and since I'm just a preacher, I could definitely go there. This is spiritual warfare. I think there is system and structures and principalities that are set up in realms that we can't see to intentionally disrupt the progress of us as a people. I strong.
Yeah, you said it right. Bible says this way: we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities. Stuff we cannot see. And so that claim, you're biblically correct. I mean, that claim is perfect. The way to put it, especially like in the world of education, we wrestle against the school to prison pipeline. We wrestle against you saying this kid is ADHD when really the teacher just don't want to deal with the black student. We wrestle against those types of things, and I mean, there's really no. I mean, there's a way to, but there hasn't been no select, cookie cutter way to improve it and to get better at it. And so, you're spot on. You're spot on. And I do have another question. So, with everything that you do, you mentioned writing a book. Of course, you have your doctorate and everything. How did you continue to stay on top of these things and still teach? How did that work out? Get your doctorate, writing a book, everything else that you do while still maintaining your day job as a principal, before principal as a teacher, so on and so
My work is so intertwined that it's all really one. Um, I'm actually living what I talk about. I'm actually
forth.
walking out.
Yeah,
Um, so it's not hard. It's not hard. I got my doctorate when I was a teacher.
yeah,
Um, but like I said, it's all one continuous motion. It's not just two separate things where I have to split myself in two. Like I'm literally um, walking out what I already do and talking out what I do.
yeah. Okay. What's up? That's that. Many and it's crazy because my dad, he's a superintendent. He's going for his doctorate right now. He's finishing up in May, and with him being a superintendent, and he's also a preacher too. So he has, and maintaining family stuff, and I, of course, I'm away. Me and my sister are away, but he still has kids at home too. We always ask him the question, how do you stay on top of it? I always ask that because I always have a lot on my plate when it pertains to school and stuff I do outside of school, and even organizations within school, just to see other people's perspective, to see how they do it. And so that's big time. Damien, you got anything, man?
Yes, yes. I want to ask you this here. We are still in this pandemic, right? So, what do you feel about the coronavirus right now? And then we got students who are back in school, and then possibly who are going to be doing virtual because we got new COVID cases. And what are your thoughts on virtual learning as well?
Okay. Um, the first question was, I'm gonna start with the last question. How do I feel about the virtual learning? It's not working at this point. It's just not. It's not working in this. And I think we just need to tell the truth about that, right? It's not working. So it's especially not working for us as Black people. We live totally different than other people. We are communal people. We are people who are both biosocial. We come together. If you don't believe me, go to a HBCU homecoming and you will see what I'm talking about. You don't have to teach us how to do that. We just do that naturally. That's who we are. And we also are very relational people. Very, very relational people. So we don't, a lot of us learn, if we look back at our own learning experiences, a lot of times we learn because we have a relationship with the person who is teaching us. And it's hard to build a relationship virtually on a virtual platform. It's not working. Also, too, what I've noticed too is just the engagement piece of our children. Our children are just simply not engaged in this virtual process, and we all know as educators that is a big part of the educational experience. And just to also say too that education is an experience. If you think about high school, you will remember an experience before you remember a lesson. And that's what we're not providing for children. We're not necessarily providing uh, experiences for our children in virtual spaces because it's just very hard to do so. So the truth of the matter is, it's not effective. My fear is that it's going to be huge opportunity gaps, economic gaps, achievement gaps, all kind of gaps between races of people, classes of people, because coming up this March, our students would have been out of school for an entire year. That is a serious problem. I'm thinking about our SPED students who are not receiving accommodations because teachers are not equipped. Teachers don't have the knowledge or the know-how, or just simply just can't do it. Provide accommodations and modifications for students who need those services. I'm thinking about the gender divide. We see that there are more male students who are not engaging in the instruction virtually. That is going to be another serious issue. I just can't imagine being a student at this point and going from being in a classroom to a virtual space for almost a year. So to answer your question, it's not working. It's not working. We have to reimagine and rethink, how do we build community within the Black community when we can't meet physically? That's a serious issue.
And that's important. I'm glad you said you brought up the male students and how they're struggling more within this virtual era of school, which is which brings out the idea of now, brings the virtual platform has brought passing instead of learning. Does that make sense? You're just in school to pass the class, which been a problem before, but now it's in more of a spotlight than it has been, because we're in a virtual space. They're going at their own pace unless you're doing Zoom, but even with Zoom stuff, it still isn't working. And then the fact that you brought up the opportunity gaps, and I do have a question about that. I was a part of this program this past summer called Summer House Institute, where we spent the whole day talking about opportunity gaps. We dove deep in the book of, I think it was Urban Education by I forgot the man, Dr. Edward Brockenborough, something like that. And it was called it's like Urban Preparation. There it is, Urban Preparation, and it had a whole chapter on opportunity gaps. We talked about it, and we talked about what causes the opportunity gaps. So I want to hear from you. What causes the opportunity, in your opinion, what causes opportunity gaps between Black students and white students?
Poverty. Simply put, poverty. And let's define poverty. Poverty is not just money in the bank. It is if there's a lack of anything that you're supposed to have, that's called poverty. So if I just use an example, if I have low self-esteem, then I'm impoverished. The root of all of this is poverty. And it goes back to what I was saying too. It is all intentional.
Yeah,
it's all intentional. A poverty mindset and a poverty circumstances situation was set up how capitalism is set up.
Yeah.
In a capitalistic society, you will always have the poor. And even scripture tells us, right? Jesus said that, right? That the poor will always be among us.
Yeah.
In a capitalist society, we will always have what I consider to be winners and losers. And no matter how we define ourselves in this conversation, Black, white, male, female, gay, straight, Christian, Jewish, whatever, right? However you define yourself, really we can lift all those titles up, and we could really define ourselves in two basic categories: the haves and the have-nots. You either have it or you don't, right? You can have some of it, but I'm gonna go ahead and say you don't have it because you don't have everything that you need. So the opportunity gap falls into how our American structure is built. There are gonna be people in every area of American life who either have it or don't. Housing, public health, or just the health care system, education, every area, criminal justice, right? There's not an equal playing field for everybody, and if you look at like political science, if you study that real heavy, we tend to look at the American experience as an experiment, right? We're trying to experiment on how we could bring all these different people, all these different cultures, and the ideology of the Constitution that we have together. We have not fulfilled this experiment. Like when we look at the Declaration and we look at the Constitution, we have not really got to those ideals. So the opportunity gap is structural issues within our society. And my argument is that American society is not meant for Blacks as a whole to get to a certain area. When you look at the presidency of Barack Obama, right? That scared a lot of people to the point to where now we have a man in the White House who is responding to the first black presidency. It is my thing that if there was no black president, if there was no Barack Obama, there would be no President Trump, right?
Exactly. Right.
Right. And so when we talk about opportunities, right, when black people started rising, no, he doesn't want us, everybody to have health care, right? So he's shooting that down. He wants to shoot that down. Education is not supposed to be for everybody, right? That was the premise. We have to go back to the original premise of America, that education was not meant for blacks in this country. Education was not meant for a lot of group of people in this country. And so when you see a rise of people, right, a rise of people come up, then there are going to be systems and structures in place to push those people back down. When we saw the looting that took place over the summer, we look at that from a political science standpoint. We may say it was looting, right? It was vandalism, it was this and that, but what it really was, it was the poor people rising up. Do poor people really need, do they really need a Louis Vuitton bag?
They
No,
don't.
but the point that we're making is what we saw in a lot of these cities was a fight for opportunities. A fight for, we saw for 8 minutes and 46 seconds a man die at the hands of the police, right? That is not the opportunity. We don't even have the opportunity to breathe in certain spaces. So I'm saying all that to say is the root of all of these issues is poverty. There's a lack of something in every area of American life for us.
You're exactly right. And I like how you brought up how when black people started advancing, it just so happened that, stuff, white people just buckle. Like it brings me to this subject. Bachelor's degrees didn't become invaluable till black people started getting them. That's why, you got jobs requiring master degrees, doctorate degrees, because black people are starting to get these bachelor's degrees, and they know that, if you raise the standard, they aren't going to reach for it. But at the same, because right now in the education system, a bachelor's degree is very, I wouldn't say invaluable, but compared to a teacher with a master's degree, you almost got to get a master's degree to get to advance in education. And then going back to the opportunity gaps question, you talked about how everybody has different opportunity. Black people may lack in this than white people. Are the curriculum writers, and I'm in the educator's prep program right now, and for us to get certified, we have to take these tests. I'm sure you're very knowledgeable about these tests. And these tests, every time you're in a situation, circumstance, scenario, they're in a perfect situation, perfect world. I don't know how it is, but in Texas, that's how it is. When we take our PPR and our content exams, you have to imagine your classroom as a perfect classroom, perfect world. When in fact, we don't teach in a perfect world. So it makes me want to raise the claim and raise the question: is the curriculum, is the way we are being taught how to teach also, I guess you could say, contributing to opportunity gaps, because we are being taught to teach in a perfect world, when in fact our world is far from perfect.
Absolutely, absolutely. So when we talk about teacher education programs, I am a huge critic of teacher education programs. Teacher education programs, like you said, do not teach to ideal settings. It is not practical. It is more theory, right? There's more theoretical things, right? And it's like when little DeMarcus cuss you out, Mr. Johnson, what are you gonna do? The textbook don't tell you that, and some professors you will probably never hear talk about that, right? And with me, I do teach in a teacher education program. I didn't teach this semester, but the issue that I find with the teacher education programs is that it's not real. It is more, schools have really become more of social reproduction factories than social change.
Yeah.
We don't see the schools. They may say that. That's all just not true. they are teaching you all to keep the status quo.
Yeah.
The schools have been used to keep society the same. We don't teach students how to really critically think, because if we did that, then we would stop teaching students process of elimination, A, B, C, or D, and then only give students only 30 seconds to think about it, right?
Yeah.
We would stop looking for, like, when as an administrator, I come in your class and I'm so caught up on artifacts to prove a point for the white man, right? Instead of figuring out whether little Carton can actually read. You know, we have cities, let's be very, very clear. We have cities of people who are almost damn near illiterate.
Yeah.
Baltimore City, for an example. Do you know that not one black male passed the reading exam? I can't remember what year it was, and maybe you should fact check what year it is, but that is very alarming to me to see that we have, I mean, that's almost the same as slavery, right? We have a city of people who are almost, and I'm not talking bad about Baltimore or anything like that, but what I'm saying is the teacher education programs are not preparing teachers to educate. They're not preparing educators, they're preparing teachers. Yeah. And my hope is that at some point we teach our teachers to be both. You have to be able to know when to pour into a child's life, and you got to also know when it's time for you to pull out the gifts and talents that a student may have. And we don't talk about that. And we also don't talk about the spiritual side of education. Do you know that there's a moral part of this that a lot of people don't talk about at all because they don't want us to know about it? When we look at the life of Jesus, Jesus was a teacher, but he also was an educator, right? Yeah. He knew how to pour into people, and he knew how to pull out. Let's look at the woman at the well, right? He meets this woman and he pours into her. He teaches her, right? The first thing he addresses is racism. Yeah. The woman replies to him, "You are Jewish and I'm a Samaritan. You're not supposed to be talking to me." Exactly. She addresses that right then and there. It's not about which body my spirit occupies. It is about the spirit, right, connecting with another spirit, right? But in way we see education, the way we see the world, it is oftentimes the body that I occupy that helps or not helps me get to certain places in life. Then he addresses at the woman at the well. He teaches her, right? The way that you have been taught to do whatever it is that you're doing, there's going to come a day where you're going to realize that everything that you're doing is going to be within spirit and in truth. When he was more so talking about was worship, right? How you all worship on that mountain and how you're doing, you know, I'm not going to get to the religious side of that, but what I'm saying is that there's a moral side to all of this. And Jesus knew when to pour into this woman and when to also pull out. So go tell your husband what I said. Oh, I don't have a husband. That's right. You got 5.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So, oh, wait, you a prophet. Now, yeah, I'm telling you everything that you've ever done. The point that I'm saying is he knew her well enough to know you're better than that.
Yeah.
We have to know our students to also say teacher education programs don't do this. They don't teach us how to pour into little Carlton's life, little DeMarcus from the hood who have experienced gun violence, social emotional trauma, and things like that I carry just within my blood because I am Black.
Yeah.
We don't teach the spiritual side of it, and that the scripture also says to train up a child in a way that he or she should go, so when they get older, they won't depart from it. We don't teach moral education.
That's really the biggest part, because how can you teach a kid pedagogy when you don't have a relationship, a proper relationship with that kid? How can you help a student pass the standardized tests, which I think are so stupid? Don't get me started on standardized tests. When you don't know how to educate the student. You can't educate the student if you don't know how to. That makes sense. And so, that was a big thing. I'm glad that you brought up the scripture for obvious reasons. But man, it's crazy how the only conversations I've had about this is with Black people, and we all think the same thing about these teacher prep programs. How they don't prep educators, they prep teachers. So for you to pass the certification exam, get you a job, have this theory that half-time don't even be used in a classroom. We need more practice in these educator prep programs. Of course, it's harder right now with the pandemic. However, at the same time, if you want to properly educate these teachers how to educate, you will find a way to invest ways and figure out maneuver, reimagine ways on doing that. And so I'm a big advocate for, me being in college in an educator's prep program right now. I'm a huge advocate for the modification and adaptation of teacher education programs, because I got some good professors. They've become mentors to me. They've been some good professors, good mentors, all that. However, they really can't teach what they want to teach, and how to and get us out there because of their curriculum they have to adhere to in their higher ups, which is also another conversation for another day. But man, that's you hit the nail on the head. Damian, what you got, man? You got anything?
Yes, that was very good there. So I want to ask you this here. We are all Black men. So, why do you think we are always the target to police officers? Because they are always blaming us for things that we are not even doing. Or if we do whatever, they do not want to hear our side of the story. So why do you think it's always a target on us and not specifically to white people?
Okay. This is what I strongly believe. We have to go back to how police got started in this country to begin with. So when we study, particularly the southern states, a lot of the police were patrollers who were more so there to protect white people from Black people, because what happens is when you deprive a group of people from basic necessities, what you really create is a system of people who are going to fight back, right? If you starve, let's just use a dog as an example. If you starve a dog, that dog is going to eventually try to fight back for food. What was going on is we have a group of people who were fighting for their survival. And when you hear the term, and we hear this term a lot lately, it is something that is definitely coming back up, but it's never left. The term law and order. We have to understand that law and order is a man-made system in this country. Like when we talk about American law, we're talking about order. We're talking about a group of people who came together to write these laws on how they would govern and provide order for this country. They've always seen Black men in this country as criminals, when in fact, we are a group of people who have been fighting for our survival for over 400 years in this country. And I can talk about other countries, but you specifically asked me about this country. The police today is still following the remnant of what I'm talking about. So when we look at like slave policies and slave laws, let's look at like we could look at any state really. We could look at Virginia. We could look at North Carolina and study their slave codes and study all of these things. Particularly, and you could do some research on this, the Negro Act of 1740 And this is the Negro Act of 1740 in South Carolina. These are a group of laws that came into place after what we consider to be a slave uprising. And it was led by Black men. There is a threat that some people feel when Black men are educated. There was a slave by the name of Jimmy who was not literate in English, but was literate in Spanish. And he read a sign that was written in Portuguese. And Portuguese is very similar to Spanish. And what this sign said was, if you flee to St. Augustine, Florida, you will become free. When he was able to read that, of course, he went back and told all of his people that, hey, if we flee to Florida, we will be able to be free. So what he did was he went and educated other people, went and taught other people, and what it led to was an uprising. It led to an uprising, and from that moment, it sent a very powerful message to the nation, especially the Confederate States of America, that first of all, we got to withhold reading and literacy from them, because if they know how to read, then they could really read this Bible, and they will start to realize all of the lies that we've been teaching them were in fact lies. And then from that moment too, they've always saw Black men as criminals. They always seen us as a certain way. So they put laws in place, and they had to put a law enforcer in place. And from that moment, these laws and the law enforcement have always been used to keep Black men in particularly down, because they know that we are leaders. If we get education, we will start to realize who we really are. So they got to keep us indoctrinated with ignorance. And the root word of ignorance isn't necessarily saying, I don't know something. No, ignorance, the root word of ignorance is to ignore. What are we ignoring? We are ignoring who we really are. And so from this moment, what we have seen is throughout from 1619 to where we are now, policies and laws that have been mutated over time to maintain the same results. And then we see how these laws and policies actually play out in our everyday society. That is why we saw 8 minutes and 46 seconds of Derek Chauvin's knee on the neck of an innocent Black man. And I can go even further, but I'll stop there because I could lecture. I don't want to lecture, but
it's all good, man. We can sit here and listen to you, man, because that you're exactly right. And when we connect, I guess you can say the lack of, well, I guess you can say ignorance, not lack of ignorance, but ignorance in the curriculum and what we have been taught into the events that are transpiring today, and pertaining to social injustice. You know, you put it in perspective, it all connects and it all makes sense. And so that
and let's be clear too, right? We have to also be clear that when we see this time and time again, that Black men have been threatening to society, and it's a spiritual component to all of this too, right? And I'm not here to debate whether Jesus was a Black man. I have my beliefs on that. This is not the right forum to do that. But let's consider some things. Moses, for an example, grew up and was born in Africa. Okay. During that time, the Pharaoh of that particular time period, noticed that these African boys, whether you want to say they were Black, I'm gonna let you make whoever's listening to me make that decision. But let's look at it. This is called concatenation studies. In Africa, they call this Sankofa, meaning that if you want to get down to the root of something, go back to learn where it came from, to figure out how do you conceptualize and understand where you are today. Pharaoh made it very, very clear that he was afraid of these little African boys, that if they realize who they are, they were slaves, they were born into slavery. If they realize who they are, they're going to revolt and they're going to uprise. So kill them all. Kill every male child in this land, because I'm afraid that if they realize who they really are and they really get the education that they need, they're going to overthrow this whole system. So, right, what happens is Moses' mother puts Moses in a basket and basically saves his life by bringing him up the Nile River. The point that I'm making is that one African child grew up to be a man, and what did that man go back to Pharaoh and say?
Let my people go.
Let my people go. So we have to understand that all of this stuff is not just, oh, this is just happening today. This stuff is coming from somewhere. And we have to realize that.
Yeah, you're exactly right. What you got, Damian?
No, I have nothing else. This was a great interview here. So before we, KJ, do you have anything else?
I'm good. Very insightful, very informative conversation that we needed to have. I appreciate you.
Yeah.
Really do. I appreciate you, man.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate this too.
Yes, I'll go ahead and close this out. Dr. McMillan, we do appreciate you. We enjoyed the insight that you shared, the conversation that that you dove into, and that you've allowed us to have with you. If you have anything else, man, shoot, man, we're good to go. Damian, wherever he went, I think his internet may have been going in and out. However, we can keep it moving. We appreciate you, Dr. McMillan. Hopefully we can have you back one day. I'm not the man to make that call. I'm gonna let Dave. If it's up to me, man, you'll be back next week. However, but we appreciate you, man, and we pray all is well with you for the rest of the school year. Hope you stay safe, stay healthy the rest of the school year, and we wish you and your students the best. We really do.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Same for you and yours.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you.
All right. Thank y'all.
Yes, sir.
What's going on, everybody? It's KJ here, letting you know that if you have any questions or concerns about Future Educators Talk, stories to share, feedback to make our podcast better, reactions to the topics that we discuss, jokes to tell, or you would like someone for the co-host to interview, please let us know by direct messaging us on Instagram at Future Educators Talk, emailing us at futureeducatorstalk@gmail.com, or sending in a voice message to us by going to anchor.fm/futureedtalk. Click on the message tab to where you can record your question to us. Once again, we thank you for listening. Thank you for your continued support, and we cannot wait for you to tune in for season 4.
Don't just listen to Future Educators Talk on your smartphone. Continue the conversation online. Like us on Facebook. Be a part of our conversation by telling us what you think of our episodes. Join us on Instagram for behind-the-scenes content. Follow us on Twitter to stay up to date with what's happening on our podcast. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss future episodes. And beyond, it's you who keeps Future Educators Talk going. So like, comment, share, subscribe, review, and connect everywhere with us. You get social. So let's listen together.